What do you mean when you speak of a new monk? A person who lives a holy life in the midst of the world. We expect the spiritual renewal of humanity from a new kind of saint who is serious about succession and discipleship and about an earthly life oriented towards supermundane ideals. I dream of a new Saint Francis or a new Saint Ignatius who teach us a new kind of Christian life that is more engaged in the world and yet at the same time more detached from it. I believe to know that I will actually be inwardly clear and sincere only when I really begin to take the Sermon on the Mount seriously. The restoration of the Church certainly comes from a new kind of monasticism, which has in common with the old one only the uncompromising attitude of a life according to the Sermon on the Mount in following Christ. I believe it is time to muster people for this purpose. Who is inwardly equal to the robot of our time and able as an adversary to beat it in the spiritual battle? Salvation comes through a new transformed monasticism. In order to recognize the unavoidable necessity of founding new religious orders, one only needs to consider the significance of the spiritual orders of knights for the Middle Ages. In the long run, modern Christianity will not be able to get by without a new transfer of the idea of the order to the present time. It needs new orders because only a new brotherhood of those marked by pain, as Albert Schweitzer says, can give the right answer to the spiritual need of the present time. James Hilton's Shangri-La, Hermann Hesse's Glass Speed Game, and Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov bear witness to the hope that the world can be saved by the example of a monastic elite. Does a holy life mean, for instance, that I should give up all possessions, take the bowl, and roam the streets as a mendicant monk? No, of course not. That is an aberration. Property used for the common welfare is a good thing. A modern saint participates in normal everyday life. Following the example of Helena and Nikolaus Roerich, he has a wife, children, and a bread and butter job to earn his living with his own hands. He is distinguished by one thing only. He always reveals only his higher, eternal self. He directs his thoughts, feelings, words, and deeds through his heart. The fire of the heart constitutes the principle of the new world. This is the law of the heart. One should sow the good with every glance, every touch. You can realize this ideal at any time, in any place, in whatever circumstances fate has placed you. A negative example is Tolstoy. For years, until shortly before his death, he tormented himself and those around him with the question, must I not, in order to live up to the high moral standards I am propagating, in order to fulfill Christ's commandments, in order to lead the life of a saint and to be close to God, give up my entire enormous fortune, leave my wife and children, and roam the world as a pilgrim? Had he known the concept of the interior monastery, he would probably have lived a happier life. The New Age calls for an expansion of the concept of monasticism. The outer physical monastery is the ideal of the mortal. He regards his existence as limited to only one earthly life. He is therefore faced with the necessity of hurriedly forcing his way into heaven before he dies. The inner monastery, on the other hand, is the concept of the immortal. He perceives ahead of him many lives with a wide variety of tasks. Of course, you cannot always incarnate only as a monk in a holy place. In this way, you would not make any progress. You must prove yourself on your eternal path as a politician, craftsman, employee, worker, judge, doctor, architect, philosopher, army commander, artist, scientist, headmaster, businessman, family father, and in many other functions. Urusvati realizes the multiformity of the great service, which is usually completely misunderstood, or, if accepted at all, mistaken for monastic monotony. But the great service responds to earthly needs, and the true servant of humanity must know all conditions of life. He must appreciate the various fields of labor in order to be able to give wise encouragement. In this way, service will bring benefit everywhere. You can distinguish such children from an early age, children who bear their own world of spiritual manifestations. Very rarely, almost never, do they limit themselves to just one specialization. In fact, the absence of specialization is a defining characteristic. When you look through their past lives, you can see representatives of religion, royalty, science, art, and mechanics, who are waiting well-equipped for the journey ahead and ready to leave at any hour without regrets. A king is reborn as a shoemaker and tested whether he is able to maintain his position in the hierarchy even in this situation. The events before and after flow by utterly unnoticed. Whether a life passes in a throne room, a monastic cell, or a cobbler's corner makes no difference. The entire aura that has been accumulated accompanies this final path. We must test ourselves in the most diverse circumstances. In this is contained the secret of the most manifold incarnations. But people cannot understand in what manner a king is transformed into a cobbler. Like the philosopher, sold into slavery, you must face adverse conditions in order to atone for old karma. Even if you have already lived in a sanctuary, you will be sent back into the world for as long as it takes to further perfect yourself. The thinker Plato, even when he was sold into slavery, said, "This is splendid proof of the diversity of the human path." It is not foreseeable at all in which family, political, social or economic circumstances you will have to assume responsibility. All these external conditions, where and how you have to live, in poverty or wealth, in contemplative or active times, in work or leisure, are basically indifferent. One should constantly exercise one's individual subtle energies in various spheres, for this helps one to feel at home everywhere. The warriors of light must be present and carry out their work all over the world. Not only in the countryside, but also in the big cities. Not only among primitive peoples, but also in the materialism of affluent societies. Not only in solitude, but also in family. Not only in a monastery, but also in secular professional life. Among the poor and the rich, the high and the low, and so on. We entrust our disciples with the task of getting to know the desert as well as the atmosphere of the city. The Master must be able to send his disciples wherever there are tasks to be fulfilled, precisely there where conditions are worst and need is greatest. Thus, in the ancient days, the great teachers sent their advanced disciples to places threatened by earthquakes. You do not have enough imagination to conceive the places, times, historical situations, and even catastrophes you will go through on your infinite path. The quality of finding new ways is precious. Therefore, we test a disciple upon his ability to adjust himself to unusual conditions.